The following episode contains or may contain spoilers. So if you're spoiler sensitive, maybe beware.
Yeah, you sensitive people.
Get out.
No, get in.
Mentioned that is totally our dynamic, though.
Yeah. Right?
I feel like I'm being very Superman right now.
Welcome to the Phantom Zone. 3 fans, 1 podcast, and a sea of comics. I'm Noah.
Kayla.
And Jared.
And today we have a Spiderman-ish kind of...
Thwip. Thwippity thwip.
What?
He's making the webby gesture.
That's the sounds of his web. Thwip. Thwip. I don't know why it sounds like that. But...
So usually before a superhero movie, especially a solo one, we do a deep dive. And to do a Spider-Man deep dive, we would probably need a 2-parter, maybe a 3-parter.
Yeah, I'd think 3-parter.
Or it's just a lot. And
Well, I mean, we'd have to focus solely on one of the boys, you know?
that's true.
Mm-hmm.
There's just so much that goes into it. Not to say that we're not going to do it, but so we decided to go a little different. And since Mysterio is going to be the new villain,
Is he a villain?
We'll see.
Or-
Probably.
Oh my god.
oh, maybe not. In the new movie, we decided to do some lesser known or more kind of hinted at villains, ones that are going to be coming up, at least in the movies, or ones that were kind of there and not really explained a lot.
They're like right on the verge of being, they're some of the biggest ones in comics, but you know, and they're beloved, but they're right, they could break at any moment.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, there's been tons. I mean, there's been a lot of villains in the Spider-Man movies in general.
Yeah.
I mean, we have everything from how many Green Goblins? Like 2, 3.
So yeah. Yeah, you know what's really funny about that? That means they've done so many different villains. Well, we admit, but also they've done one character like 4 times.
They do that with Doc Ock and all of that, too, though.
Yeah,
like,
that's
his
true.
A-list villains are always being used.
Yeah,
that's
whereas
true.
the ones that we chose tend to, maybe they have one appearance, maybe a cameo in a movie or 2, but it's not as extensive as some of his main villains.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, for at least for the general audiences, people that might not read comics or haven't read a lot of the how many different Spider-Man runs there are. Yeah, I mean,
just real quick. Listeners, comic fans, stay. People that don't read comics, earmuffs real quick, and then come back in like 20 seconds. Actually, that's probably technically impossible. Anyway, you're going to hear something that's crazy. It's so cool to me that people who don't read comics and aren't going to like look up a Wikipedia don't know Mysterio's bad.
Yeah.
yeah.
They are not getting enough credit for what a cool move that is. You have every reason going into this movie, if you're not a comic
Oh,
book
look,
fan.
he's working with Spider-Man.
It's a new hero. It's Jake Gyllenhaal. I mean, who and he
His
looks like
dreamy
Doctor Strange.
eyes.
Yeah,
Perfect face.
I just think that's such a cool idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but that's the good thing of using lesser known characters or really going into the mythos of that character and
Well,
showcasing.
I feel like a fool because it's kind of fooling me, and I know that Mysterio's a bad guy in the comics. I'm like, oh, is he good this time? Look at his trusting face.
But to like MCU's credit, they have kind of changed some people's alignment, or at least where they come
Make
from.
it a little bit more complicated.
Exactly. So, I mean, for all we know, he could actually be a good guy, at least for this movie.
Maybe he ends as a villain.
Exactly.
Starts as a good guy.
We're going to get into what he is, so the listeners who don't know will know. But But you've probably seen what he looks like. Can we just say he is one of the coolest looking characters
Coolest
ever?
fish dome head ever.
It's like, what do you think, Noah?
Oh, I mean, he's one of my favorite Spider-Man villains.
Yeah.
I've always loved his look. I think it's super cool because you don't see a person. And a lot of his villains, you see some type of face, and all you see is a smoky little bowl
I love it.
on his head, and it adds more to the mystique of who he is. Yeah.
Yeah, and design-wise, it is right on like the corner of like stupid and awesome.
Yep.
And
He does toe the line.
Yeah.
and like he just like the gloves are even every detail on his costume is bizarre. They're like squared. His like gauntlets. Are, like,
Yeah, he
squared
has
off
like
in this
these
bizarre way.
these weird like it's way too much like on his hand.
He's Baroque as fuck, y'all.
But it makes sense on why. I mean, he has a bunch of gadgets and stuff.
Yes,
so
that's a good point.
It definitely makes sense that his costume is a little too extravagant. But yeah, I mean, as far as like, I guess the movie, like, can I ask like who your favorite movie villain of Spider-Man is?
Oh yeah, I guess before we get into Mysterio, we should just sort of talk about the villains generally. You know what's really this is because the movie's so busted and so bad.
Oh God.
Oh.
Oh.
Sandman.
Dot.
Yeah, and I know I'm not alone here because there's so many people have mentioned that scene where he forms for the first time, and I think what's the guy's name? Something Church, the actor.
I know the guy's face. I don't.
We'll add it in post.
No, I won't.
We won't. Noah will add it in post. No, it's like, but it's funny because they know it didn't get added anyway. But I thought that it was the look is correct. The powers are really cool. I love that subway fight. And they made him appropriately sort of tragic, and I really liked it. It was sort of like Spider-Man's. Uncle gets killed by this no account unacceptable crook. Yeah, I didn't want to say that. But
Spoilers.
But so the other side of that mythos is what about crooks that aren't, inherently irresponsible and kind of get put into that life and are trying to be responsible like Peter is. So I just
a weird choice as your favorite, I would say.
I will admit it is not the most popular pick, but I was just
for that movie, he's probably the best part in that movie, which is also sad because 75% of that movie is just so bad.
It was mishandled almost completely.
It's a stark difference between the first two. Like you can just going in there, and I think it's everything from like how they made Peter look emo. First, like you don't need to make him look depressed; just make him depressed.
Yeah,
like
yeah. That's a good point.
His hair doesn't need to like act like some.
Well, those movies are such messes.
Also, just it gets points, and this is something only comic fans care about half the time. It looks right off the page. Whereas all the other characters that you could mention, which they shouldn't even lose points for not doing this, but it's like, they were clearly movie adapted. They're very different looking. Green Goblin's a great example. In the first one,
he looked amazing.
He looks amazing, but he looks nothing like you know what I mean? It's a very different look.
No, but I think that goes to show that if you make a good costume, you can tell who it is just by looking at him. He's green. He looks like a goblin.
Yes.
That's all you need to know.
No question. But in this case, I just feel like Sandman looks just like...
Yeah, but I mean, to be fair, his costume is like khakis and a green striped shirt.
But even they squared off the head. They did
raise your standards.
No, I think these are higher standards than you. You guys have low standards and you're dumb. That's all I'm saying.
No, I mean, I agree with that choice.
Saying.
Like, I think that character's good in that movie.
Yeah.
Mine is definitely Electro. I loved that character so much. I mean, I think he was handled really well. I think the actor that played him was really good at playing Electro. A lot of people didn't like it, which
it's something that's not in the comics. They're the character.
Yeah.
Which is fine. But I think there's always a predictable, even if it's not always justified, criticism from fans when they go in a very different direction.
Mm-hmm.
So Max Dillon is Electro. In the comic, he's very crook. He's very like, I'm gonna give me your money. I need your money. I got electricity.
Well, that's how most of his villains
exactly.
are.
Yeah.
They're all trying to rob some type of resource. And
And the Spider-Man villains and Flash villains are very similar in that respect. Most of the time, it's in a good way. You're the only person that could be insulted by saying it's like Spider-Man's villains.
Yeah.
But a lot of them are like hard-nosed, kind of gritty. Like I just 9 to 5 got to get that money. None of them sell drugs. That's weird. Anyway, okay, sorry.
That is true.
But Max Dillon,
they're not Batman villains though, so that's why.
But Max Dillon in this was more of a weird kind of.
He was a disgruntled employee, essentially,
and on the spectrum a little
You're
bit.
I so relate to that.
And he was into what do you call it, like Spider-Man. He was like a Spider-Man fan.
Yeah, well, and that's why I liked it. I like the stories of somebody that has this hero worship going on, and then something happens. It's kind of like the Black Manta and Aquaman. He wasn't necessarily a fan of Aquaman, but he thought he could count on him when he needed him, And then that moment Aquaman didn't like save him. He's I hate him.
Yeah.
But I love that kind of thing where it just flips.
You like that story.
Yeah, I like that kind of story where you're so obsessed with this person and the very small second can make that obsession
There's
into
one
a
choice the
terrible
hero
thing.
makes that just like
Yeah,
throws
and
them off
most
the
of the time the hero isn't meaning to make that mistake, or they can't think of everything. You know what I mean? So it's a really interesting dynamic, and I really liked it. And also, that movie was really good.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the best like web slinging action. Like it looks pretty.
Man, do we disagree?
Yeah, I know.
about
Everybody
that.
knows you don't like him.
Me and the internet don't like that movie.
That's
fine.
weird.
But it is actually no. Well, let me back up. I don't hate it. I think the Spider-Man franchise, with one exception, has done pretty damn well.
Yeah,
Spider-Man 3, I think, is considered a pretty big.
I think
annoying
everybody
flop.
can agree on that
Yes.
one. Where it's like Topher Grace, really?
But I would say the Spider-Man franchise is a better average than the X-Men do.
yeah.
That's
Just in terms of
that's
like-
actually very true.
Yeah.
I agree with that. Because you have two movies that are really divisive, or probably four movies are really divisive in the X-Men franchise, and then in Spider-Man, it's like just one that everybody can really agree on. That's just really bad.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But Electro looked cool as shit. The
I like the
fight
way they
scenes-
made him look. Like it was completely new and different, but it really exemplified who he was.
This is so silly, but it's so important because it's going to be in there so much. The electricity effects look cool.
Yeah.
Like
know what
when
I mean?
I think he was in Times Square when he really first started fighting.
Yeah.
him. That entire fight scene. I'm like, this is amazing.
And his voice
Yeah, I loved it. So
is all
much.
staticky.
What about you, Caitlin?
Yeah. Well, in the movies, it's kind of a tie between Harry Osborn. Because I feel like Harry has a lot of the emotional weight that a villain should have. It's not just like, you're my adversary. It
Yeah,
was
yeah.
like they were friends. They had a relationship. They're similar ages.
The Franco one or the other guy?
Both, actually. I
You're
feel are
cool
kind of...
with both?
Yeah, just Harry Osborn in general, I think, is an interesting antagonist
Yeah.
to Peter's story. Again, because it's just complicated. There's a lot of emotions that are kind
Yeah.
of tied up in that. Especially...
Agreed.
yeah.
I definitely like the James Franco version better.
Yeah.
Like all the way through, but I did like the newer one until he really became
Yeah.
Green Goblin. I was like, you freak me out, man.
He was very unsettling.
Yeah.
Why does he look like that? That killed it because that costume's so cool.
Yeah.
The comic book one, and they've updated it. Like you don't have to do the first one where it is a bit sillier or whatever. They've just had better, more realistic artists do that thing, and it looks creepy and
Well, I
dark
think-
and everything.
I think
Yeah.
the Raimi ones were more of like, let's make them look like their comic book counterparts, but
Yeah.
more of like a person dressing up as in a suit.
Yes. Yeah, yeah.
And then in the Amazing Spider-Man one, it was more of like this person turned into
Great
something
point.
else.
Yeah,
Great
yeah.
point.
So they had to like mutilate him
Yeah.
in some way or change him some way.
But they're like, he looked like an old guy. Like he just like hair
mean-
coming out of his ears and shit.
He did. Yeah, he started actually looking like a goblin.
Yeah.
Like he looked grotesque.
It
and
was
stuff.
horrifying.
Yeah, and
I get
think
what they're going for.
It was
yeah.
good in that aspect, but it was kind of like,
It still just having to look at him. You're like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's
I'm so uncomfortable right now.
yeah.
But the other one is Vulture. I thought Vulture was done really well, and I
Yeah.
really liked that character the whole time in the movie. In fact,
I mean, it was the actors sold it.
Yeah, Michael Keaton.
yeah.
So, another not very true to the comic book,
Mm-hmm.
but man, did they update it well.
Yeah.
But see that it goes to show like they just need to have good characters.
I'm
like they
so
just
dumb, too. I didn't see the twist coming.
Yeah. I didn't know. I don't
was
think
like,
it's.
what?
I don't think it's that. Actually, not that it's a bad twist, but like, I don't think you could.
Yeah.
It's not implicit in the character stuff. It's a random thing, but what a good situation that you have that Michael Keaton in the car moment with
Yeah,
Peter.
yeah.
Holy God, I'm getting shivers now.
Yeah.
Thinking about it.
Yeah.
just him looking at him
Yeah,
through the rearview mirror. I was like, ooh.
Oh, no.
And it to me is like when they respect the medium, when they actually and do this thing where they're like, oh, you think this is silly? I'm going to show you the not silly version of
Right.
that. A guy in a bird suit on paper, especially if you look at Jack or Steve Ditko's art, which was like, okay, I mean, great for the time, but it's kind of silly.
It's funny.
That harness, the vulture harness, and the
Yeah.
thing is so scary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I was like, I don't think Spider-Man can win this.
For a second there, I was like,
Yeah.
well, he didn't really win.
Yeah, it's
And
true.
I did like
Sure.
that they did that because they really put the stakes in it. Because Spider-Man with street villains or just regular street thugs or whatever is usually
Outclasses them each time.
exactly, and he was like that, but given an advantage and
Yeah.
also the emotional stakes in it.
Yeah.
It was just, I mean, it was so well done.
Yeah.
I think that movie doesn't get enough credit for just that. In
I really
general.
liked that movie.
Yeah. It was really good, especially when like all the rubble was on him and he had to like push the stuff out. I was like,
I wish I could.
That's from a comic.
It's from a specific issue. It's widely regarded as like one of Spider-Man's best moments.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to say, and it's actually close to. Well, never mind. I won't say because I'm going to talk about it later. Anyway, but also
spoil yourself.
Yeah, I know. I didn't want to mess it up. I'd say Dr. Octopus too. This isn't my favorite, but I just think he's worth mentioning. I think he's probably like the internet's consensus on one of the most successful villains in Spider-Man franchise.
Yeah.
Alfred Molina's Dr. Octopus, I think, is pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, he's very comic accurate.
Yeah.
As far as like how he looks, how he acts, and the relationship between I think that's one of the things that's best about Spider-Man is that a lot of his villains were colleagues of his or mentors of his or
Friends.
something or friends. And that always his relationship with these villains, usually the big ones, it's so much more emotionally invested than just like this crazy person is murdering people. I'm going to take him out. It's more he has to struggle with how far does he have to go for somebody that he looked up to. So, I mean.
So who do we think didn't work Spider-Man villain-wise?
Venom, the first one.
Yeah, what was it that you didn't like about it, by the way?
Topher Grace.
Just him. What about the Venom, though? What about Venom when he wasn't? Okay.
No, you didn't get enough time. Like, you really just see he finally became Venom or whatever, because Spider-Man had the symbiote too. So it was like this back and forth thing. And then when he finally got Venom and that last fight scene, that was just like, okay, like Topher Grace and like that. Like, it wasn't believable to me. Like, that was not Venom for me.
Sure.
I don't know.
Kayla, do you have a...
I don't really have a, like, one I hated the most. I think everything else was kind of fine. I think they functioned in the story how they needed to. Even Venom, I'm just like, all right. They were standouts
just
as
all
opposed
bad
to
together. So it's like, it can't get worse.
Yeah. I mean, like, I do like Sandman, and I mean,
yeah,
but nothing that really was like, wow, that was a miserable experience to have to watch with my eyes.
Here's one that's recent, and everybody loves the MCU installation of Spider-Man. And I don't have any problems except for Shocker, which is just put him in the fucking suit. He gets a lot of screen time. Make it, because the whole thing, he doesn't wear that suit. Herman Schultz is the Shocker. He doesn't wear that suit because it looks cool, because it doesn't, or whatever, or it looks silly. The idea is that his powers, if you don't know, he was weirdly named because it's not electricity, it's vibrational concussive force. And so the suit is supposed to shield him from the power of the gloves, right?
Yeah.
So, fine, you have to wear that suit for these gloves to work so it doesn't turn your organs. Here's a story that they could have done, which is the first guy puts it on, and over a period of time, he dies, and the Tinker, who's in the movie, puts him under a scanner, and it's like, oh, all his organs are jello. So he's dead. So he's like, but I can make a suit that'll like let you use the gloves, and then we get that bus fight scene, but instead of it just being a dude with the glove that's so cool, we get Herman Schultz as a Shocker. Very quick, he gets defeated, but then I get my Shocker.
I mean, I think they kind of did that in a weird way where, like, the first person that had the stuff got vaporized, so it was like, okay, he died.
Yes.
And then Vulture gives him the gloves. He's like, okay, you're Shocker now. And I mean, I was fine with it only because Vulture was such a big character in that movie that I think adding more, and then they also had, like, I mean, the whole... what's his name? Oh my God, Donald Glover cameo in there too. Like very short thing. It's like there was a lot of like moving pieces in there.
Sure.
I don't know.
I just want to see it.
Well, I did remember one that I really, really, really liked, and we didn't mention this at all.
Yeah,
it was Kingpin from Into the Spider-Verse.
Oh, if we count that movie,
I mean,
that's not fair.
But it's a Spider-Man movie.
You're not.
But then that's getting into stuff we're going to talk about later.
So that's true. We won't talk about that, but I will say just generally that wins the whole Spider-Man contest in every way.
Kingpin in general, like, you know how I feel about Kingpin in the Daredevil Netflix series. I think he was fantastic.
Yeah.
So terrifying. Kingpin is cool.
I loved how in the Spider-Verse they made him just this weird looking person, but he was so big.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, his personality is big, and he was his personality.
His presence is just inspires fear.
I do like him as a Daredevil villain better. I will say that. Yeah. I just feel like it makes more sense because he can be physically imposing. As a matter of fact, the one criticism I have about Spider-Verse is it doesn't make sense that Kingpin's that strong. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But he's just a big guy. Spider-Man can lift station wagons. Kingpin can, he's got.
The way I thought about it was,
weightlifting.
Spider-Man was already pretty fucked up.
Yes.
So something
Yeah.
could have been
Yeah.
broken or something like that, and then just Kingpin's extra strength just completely.
Also, for the movie's quality, it just doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But with Daredevil, I just believe instantly that Kingpin can seriously hurt him. I don't have to suspend disbelief. Look how big that guy is.
Yeah. That's true. Very true. And one of them's blind.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, so we're going to do a little tiny mini deep dive on Mysterio, just to let you guys know who he is, and he's coming out in the movie.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited about him.
Be informed.
Yeah. So Mysterio, Quentin Beck, which that's the Mysterio that's in the movie coming up, which is usually the Mysterio. He's the first one.
Yeah.
It's really good. His nicknames that he has, or ones that Spider-Man has given him, or ones that he's given himself, is Master of Illusion, the Menacing Mysterio, Bubblehead, or Fishbowl. So you can...
Which ones he gave himself and which ones Spider-Man gave him.
I am Bubblehead.
So,
Hear me.
So Mysterio doesn't have any superhuman abilities. He's an expert designer of special effect devices and stage illusions, master hypnotist, a magician, depending on which Mysterio you're talking about. I threw that in there because it looks like he has mysticism in the new one. The original one didn't really, so...
It's like he has magic, like sleight of hand magic.
Yeah, but
like
in this one,
that.
it really looks like he's doing some like Doctor Strange level shit.
Yeah.
And then he's an amateur chemist and roboticist. So this guy's like a jack of all trades with this kind of stuff. He also has an extensive knowledge of hand-to-hand combat techniques learned as a stuntman, allowing him to engage in combat with Spider-Man and all these other ones that are physically more powerful than him, because he knows how to fight and he knows how to counter it. So it's more of a defensive thing than him actually fighting.
He knows how to, after being punched, fall on the ground and not break a hip.
Without getting seriously injured.
Yeah, he's really good at misdirection, that kind of stuff. And that's really all. I mean, so to explain his fishbowl, can I explain that?
Please do.
Okay. So he uses mist. He uses these things to instill illusions into people, even like mass people. He'll release that gas or mist. And the fishbowl is an oxygen tank for him.
Oh, that's smart.
Yeah. And
So it filters out all of the...
Exactly. So he won't get affected by it. He's not going to like be the Joker where he's immune to it.
Yeah.
So, and also adds to the mystique, like I said earlier. But, and so it's plexiglass also. And so he can see out, you can't see in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I always thought that was really cool. And the little triangles like on his cape actually have, they're part of shock lines in his cape.
Yeah.
So if somebody tries to grab his cape, they'll get electrocuted.
That's cool.
So
That's
he's
very
like
cool.
He's
all
tricked
around
out.
prepared.
Yeah.
For everything.
That bowl also, when Spider-Man punches him in the gut, you can't see him cry. You can't see all the tears in there.
That is very true.
Hide the expression.
But it also, so his helmet too, it has hypnotic properties with his voice. So,
Yeah, because he's a hypnotist.
Yes, he's a hypnotist. So, I mean, all around, he's like jacked out.
Yes.
Yeah.
to be prepared.
A super cool concept there that allows him to be doing a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Yes.
That all makes sense under the concept.
I mean, it's really smart too for him to have the helmet does so many different things all at once. That it's just really smart. I mean, you can really see that he used his expertise in those fields to like really get the advantage over these kind of people.
What was the name of that in The Incredibles, the sequel? What was her name? The bad guy? That's like the mind scanner or something. Do you guys remember?
I don't remember.
I don't know either.
The screensaver. Screenslaver.
Screenslaver.
I got it.
Go me.
The screensaver.
Word association.
I made it. But yeah, so he can do very similar things.
Yes.
They don't do it as sort of perfectly, like as soon as you see it, but
No,
he definitely
kind
uses
of
hypnotic
he
ability.
hits you with a lot of stuff at once. He hits
Yeah.
you with the gas, then he hits you with like his voice hypnotism, and then he has all the illusions.
And then he uses stuntman powers to
Exactly.
punch you in the face and hit you with a fist.
He's very planning orientated. That's basically him.
Yeah. Well, so for publication history, Mysterio doesn't have a lot. But starting at the beginning with Quentin Beck, created by Stan Lee, because of course who wasn't created by Stan Lee. His first appearance was The Amazing Spider-Man number 13 back in 1964. So ironically, he has been around for a very long time.
Very long time.
And like I said, Quentin Beck is like the stuntman. He actually crosses over a lot into Daredevil comics, kind of like Kingpin does. So he can also fight Daredevil from time to time. Swans in and out of Spider-Man stories. And Daredevil stories.
It makes sense too. They're in the same city.
Yeah,
Like-
exactly.
I like that.
Not enough crossover happens actually
That's
between
true.
villains. Other Mysterios, there's been Daniel Burkhart, who was introduced in 1975, Francis Klum, 2002, and then Mysterion. And after reading that name, I just stopped because what?
He is that character. Yeah, and I know those are such weird iterations of that character too.
Yeah, this is so common in these big names, especially like with villains, because villains will sometimes die, and they're like, "But we don't want to take the death back, but we like the character, so someone else
is doing the mantle now."
But then they have to like add something else to it, like you are magical now, or you literally are a fish in a bowl with a human body,
or you're a guy cheetah, or whatever. But yeah, to give you, if you're new to the character, to give you like a brief kind of character history, it's Quentin Beck, we said, but it's actually Quentin Mysteriosi Beck. Did you guys know that? That his middle name is
I did not know that.
Because that's not true. It totally seems like a thing that would happen, right?
Well, I'm just thinking like Enigma,
Yes,
like Enigma.
exactly.
I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
it's one
it
of
happens.
those.
They always like to do that.
How dare you play with us that way?
So fun. Okay, so as Noah intimated, Quentin Beck's background is a stuntman, a special effects wizard, and as an actor.
Yes.
Okay, so the idea was that Quentin was bad at his job or not successful, and he was struggling in the field. He couldn't become famous. He's this grandiose narcissistic personality that's failing in Hollywood, but he's got all these skills. Which, by the way, can I just say makes no sense because he's a special effects wizard, a stuntman, and an actor who's so good he can fight superheroes.
Also, he's a chemist and a roboticist.
Exactly. It's like you couldn't put all that together and just get a decent 8x11 headshot and then get a decent agent. Like, you've got the skills, man. You don't have to. But one of his colleagues is like, if you really want to get famous, you know what you should do? These masked vigilantes are so popular. If you could get one of them, if you could defeat them. And he's like, yes, that'll be way better than going to auditions. So that's what he does. He tries to take Spider-Man out. And I think we were talking about before the show, and it's on the animated series,
I love it.
They approximated his first appearance really well.
Yes.
Which was the idea that he frames Spider-Man for a bank robbery and just tries to ruin his life like that. But Spider-Man, using the power of punching, defeats him.
Yeah, it's really that. I like that a lot too because I remember I actually rewatched the episode because that's what made me fall in love with Mysterio. I always loved him on the animated series because he was just so big and exuberant and just ridiculous.
Yeah,
and like Spider-Man's swinging and they're like, Spider-Man's robbing a bank. He's like, how could I possibly be at two places at once? It's like, you can't, Spider-Man. Like, you know that.
I think I'm two people now. What's going on?
It's just so funny, and then he defeats him so easily.
Yeah.
He's
but that's the coolest part. Once you realize that, you're just a guy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
these are all just illusions.
All I got to do is hit you in your mushy parts.
Can I just say that I find it hard to believe that anyone that looks like Jake Gyllenhaal is going to be a failed anything in the universe.
I know.
So his origin story has to be tweaked a little bit because there's no way that man is a failed actor.
I know exactly. It's like the old
That's
Jim.
a really good point.
It's like Jim Gaffigan's got a joke about it's like sometimes the actresses are so beautiful. Like, how can they be failed? Like in Monsters Ball, Halle Berry plays this like grief-stricken widow, and it's like, well, why just get a few headshots? You could be the next Halle Berry. You're very big,
right? Yeah. I mean, that is a really good point to point out. But I do love how he defeats him in the animated series from his first battle. Mysterio makes like clones of himself or like illusions of himself, and Spider-Man is fighting him and he keeps like missing or whatever, and then the clones are all lined up and he's like, Spider Sense, don't fail me now, and he just kicks the right one. And that was it.
Nice.
What? Why would your Spider Sense know which one's the real one?
He will pointing.
They will stretch it. The Spider Sense it'll like tell him how to do a Rubik's Cube sometimes. Like they do try to give him like almost a low level mental powers or something like that. But yeah, so I think what Kayla said is true for the character history as well. He kind of appears as a kind of like gimmicky villain a lot of times, with a few exceptions. So he's joined the Sinister Six. So once you get on the Sinister Six, it elevates your,
I would say,
the Spider-Man sort of thing.
For sure.
He also, as you mentioned, he's fought Daredevil a few times.
Yeah.
A couple times driving Daredevil nearly insane.
Yeah.
And I think another one of Mysterio's sort of most devious appearances actually takes place in an alternate future, but it's a very popular one in the Logan, Old Man Logan series. Spoilers, by the way, because this is crucial to the story. Logan is ruined mentally because he accidentally kills all the X-Men because he thinks that they're all his villains.
Yeah.
And it was Mysterio, like after he kills just a room full of who he thinks is like Sabretooth and Cyber and Lady Deathstrike, and it's just all the dead bodies of the X-Men.
Yeah.
And then Mysterio's like, hey, I'm Mysterio. It really is that like gallivanting.
He like comes out and he's like, was that good? Like, I'm thinking of a movie, and like, I just wanted to test this out. Like, was that real enough for you?
Bye. So
this is why we love him.
Yeah, I mean, but that's what makes him so formidable, because he messes. So he could get into Daredevil's head, and Daredevil can't see.
I was gonna say, if he messes with Daredevil's senses, it's
exactly like, I think that goes to show you like how good he is at this like hypnotism illusion type thing. I mean, he can make people believe illusions that can't see. Like,
you know who he reminds me of? What's the Flash character? Is it Kadabra or Alec?
Are you saying Alec?
Kadabra?
Is it Kadabra?
Alakadabra?
Yeah. That character.
There's a few characters that have that same name.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Because it's sort of similar where he's not. But I'm.
Yes.
You're totally confusing me. Okay, you know the character where he's like posing as a magician.
Yes.
But it's just a future technology.
Yeah.
What's it? Who is that?
They call that, it's like techno magic.
Yeah.
So it's technically magic in the future, but it's really just technology.
Yeah. But what character is it?
Abracadabra.
Okay, great.
I said it already.
Okay, and I'm pronouncing it correctly. Abracadabra. No, I'm just okay. Anyway, yeah. Mysterio's like that, like, which is he can kind of end up doing whatever you need him to do as if he's a mage, but they're just like, oh, he's using smoke.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't know, and like that's the cool thing about how they did his origin in the animated series, because he made a building seem like it was falling on top of everybody in there, and even Spider-Man was like, oh god. But then, like, when Mysterio escaped, the building was fine, so he didn't really fall. So,
you're like, how did you do that, Mysterio?
Exactly. And then when Mysterio went on to I think it was the Brooklyn Bridge or something, he was on top of it, and Spider-Man's running up there to get him, he thinks that the rocks he's throwing at him are illusions, and they're not. So it's more the thing of like, is it an illusion?
Absolutely.
Is it not? So
yeah, because he could just as easily have set charges on the bottom of the building and blown and like really collapsed it. Because so you can't just assume like, I'll just let this harmless building fall.
You have to treat every threat as real.
Yeah. Exactly.
He's a trickster. I love trickster villains.
Yes.
Yep. When it said Master of Illusion, I was like, Loki will not like that, but that's fine.
And I think the difference between him and Loki is that, and it's kind of fun for the character, is the character is also like a petty loser.
Yeah.
Yes.
Love it.
You know, he's like pretending, which is great. It's like his villain idea that he makes is this gigantically grandiose, like he's got a cape and he looks like some weird royalty was designed.
You can tell he likes attention. I mean,
Yes.
that's the point of the costume. Like, he didn't need to do yellow, green, and purple. Like, just seeing those colors is like, damn. Like, you put some thought into that.
It's like a homeless guy who thinks that like being rich is being the Monopoly guy. You know what I mean? I'll have a monocle and a top hat, and so he's this loser, and he looks like sort of.
All right, so we all picked some of our kind of favorite, lesser known villains, ones that are coming up, have kind of been in a movie,
or definitely our favorites,
except for Jared. Yeah, is there Kayla?
Oh yeah, my guy's definitely up there in terms of like my favorite Spider-Man villain. So Prowler. Yay! He's getting more attention now. Into the Spider-Verse, obviously, he made his movie appearance there. Also kind of mentioned in Homecoming. But anyway, there's been about 4 who has the Prowler mantle. 2 of them that really count, though. So I'll touch on all of them, but, you know.
As Spider-Man villains go.
Yeah, exactly. So the first one, and the most popular, the one that's been Prowler for the longest, is Hobie Brown. His first appearance was The Amazing Spider-Man 78, November 1969. So he's been Prowler for decades and decades.
Wow.
Yeah, right? Wow.
I have no idea.
Yeah. He grew up in the Bronx, a bright but angry, like young African-American teenager. He got fired from one of his jobs and just kind of like, well, making money is really hard. He also was like a brilliant engineer. So he was like, why don't I just make an amazing suit and start stealing money? Because that'll...
I relate to that.
Keep me fed. Yeah, I mean, we can't lie and say we haven't at least been tempted to do this once in our
like
lives.
if I was a super genius on some things,
If I
it's
had
like
the engineering skills that Mr. Brown had. But yeah, so his first one, he breaks into the Daily Bugle and Peter Parker is there and he fights Peter Parker, not Spider-Man. And then Peter, to get out of the situation, falls out a window. And Brown,
smart.
yeah, he's just like traumatized. He thinks he killed this kid. He's very close to his own age.
I love this.
And it's just like, oh my God, I can't be a villain anymore. This is terrifying. And he tries to flee and Spider-Man stops him. And like they have a heart to heart. And when Spider-Man realizes that this is just a troubled kid, just like him, he doesn't become a villain anymore. He's just like, he's kind of on and off again, kind of a good guy.
oh,
Yeah, so from his inception, the Prowler is kind of one of those, like, you know, the circumstances force them into, you know, against the law, villainy kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
But
They're
his
not
heart's
like
not in it.
inherently evil or bad. It
Yeah.
was just like they were kind of felt like this was their only option. And then, like it said, when he thought he killed this random teenager, he was like, oh God, this is too traumatizing for me to continue to be a villain. I can't do this.
I really wanted the money, but I've thrown a nerd out of a window. This is bad.
But yeah, since then he helps Spidey out on and off. They're kind of friends. So sometimes he'll even don Spider-Man's costume if Peter needs like an out. It's like, no, I'm not Spider-Man. Look, Spider-Man is over there. It'll be Mr. Brown wearing the suit.
That should be like way
that's
more
smart.
popular thing. I know it happens every once in a while. Daredevil does that shit all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, I need an alibi. So there you go. Please wear
Yeah.
my suit. Give it back. But one of the major turning points, though, that kind of puts him as an adversary to Spider-Man is when Captain Stacy is killed and it's indicated that Spider-Man might be involved. Prowler kind of dons his costume and tries to bring Spider-Man to justice. So again, he's an antagonist to Spider-Man in that story, but he's not a bad guy. He's trying to bring someone to justice, you know?
Yeah.
kind of tiptoes the gray a little bit.
Yeah,
more
exactly.
on the light
He's definitely
side.
not just like a hero. He's definitely not a villain.
He's made some mistakes.
He tries to join the Defenders at one point. Valkyrie
Tries?
throws him to a river, and he's like, okay, I don't need to join the Defenders, I guess.
Poor guy.
She's just like, nice costume, and grabs him and like throws him.
Yep.
in the-
So he gives up trying to join the Defenders after that.
I would too.
Joins the Outlaws, though.
Oh.
He has a loving relationship with his wife that he's met. So a lot of his stories are kind of like balancing that with like his love, which is nice.
I don't love that the Defenders turn you down by attacking you, by the way.
I know.
I think maybe that's not appropriate.
I don't know. I was just like reading all about him, and I was just like, "Oh, this is really nice. He's not a bad person at all." And when I got to the part, and when he asked to join the Defenders, Valkyrie was like, "Nope," and shoved him into a river. I was like,
He probably got lucky. I bet the 3 people earlier than that, she just stabbed in the heart. Like, you are not a Defender.
"What's so weird is the Defender like roster changes all the time. So
Yeah.
they don't have a strict rule of like you have to be these 8 members like the Justice League. No, it's very fluid.
It's great. Somebody just rolls up like, I want to be a Defender, and she stabs him like, you're not good at defending. You're bad
You
at
couldn't
defending.
even defend yourself from that.
yeah.
Like, what?
Yeah,
He
maybe
couldn't.
it was-
It's a basic attack.
Maybe it was some sort of Valkyrie test. But
Yeah.
he failed. Joined the Outlaws though. Like I said, he found a team.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
So I mean, Hobby Brown is still around. He goes in and out. Next one, I can't remember her name. She was just a cat burglar, stole his suit, pulled off some heists. Spider-Man was like, "Is that you?" And he's like, "No, that's not me. I'm not a bad guy." And then Spider-Man gets the suit back, gives it back to Mr. Brown. So barely worth mentioning. I
Yeah.
think her name's like Belladonna or something like that.
Well, that's interesting though that somebody was like, if I steal
oh,
this
well, because
suit-
it happens again.
Yeah. That's like a main way people
So
get
he
their
can't even
powers.
defend people from stealing his suit.
Hey,
I'm
don't
starting to be on
defend-
Valkyrie's side.
No! That was a rude thing to do for a hero. But next person that steals his suit is a medical intern, Rick Lawson. Brown's brought in for like back problems. He's like hurt himself, and Lawson's working on him, and it's like, wait, this looks like a piece of a costume. And then like finds out who he is. Oh, this is the Prowler. And then goes through his medical files and like, this is where he lives.
Oh
Breaks
my
into this
God.
guy's house, steals the suit, and then uses it to get revenge on anyone that's wronged him. It's definitely like Revenge of the Nerds.
What is about this guy's suit that people just want to steal?
I have no idea.
Because it looks so damn cool.
Yeah,
For
it
real.
looks cool, and it's a masterpiece of engineering.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
yeah. Anyway.
Answered your
You
question.
think he would like engineer it in a way where only he can use it?
Yeah, right.
There's some holes in
It's
this.
encoded in his DNA.
Yeah.
But when Lawson's like on his revenge spree, he is almost murdered by the Vulture. And Spider-Man has to stop the Vulture from killing him. And then Lawson is like, I don't know if I can do this anymore.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Yeah. So he
Tough
gets
break, man.
the costumes taken from him.
Oh,
He's fine. I mean, he lived, so that's all he could hope for. And then last but not least, the most recent iteration of the Prowler is from the Ultimate Marvel universe. Aaron Davis.
yay.
Connected to Miles Morales as opposed to Peter Parker. First introduction was November of 2011, so he is still relatively new. But Aaron Davis is, like I said, the most popular one now. He was the one into the Spider-Verse.
Yes.
Breakout star. I
Yeah,
think.
oh my god. His scenes were actually super creepy in there
Yeah.
too. The music that would play during the chase scenes with
Always
Prowler.
got me.
Yeah.
And
Always.
it's really cool too because as you've illustrated, like he's kind of been a good guy the whole time.
Yeah.
and that's run its course. But like they sort of show like if you didn't know who he was and you just saw what he looked like,
Yeah.
and that he was kind of doing bad stuff, you're
Yeah.
like, God damn, this is creepy, dude, because he's got the claws and
Yeah.
The song, the little that noise that plays with him all the time. It's in the soundtrack on one of the songs.
Yeah.
Called, I think it's like "Start a Riot" maybe or something.
You just get the chills each time.
I listen to that song all the time because I'm just like, this gets me so hyped and terrified at the same time.
Yeah.
It's super creepy. The Spider-Verse kind of combines two of Aaron Davis's kind of stories, maybe. But like I said, he's the uncle of Miles Morales, where one brother obviously got married and got his life together. Aaron Davis kind of went another route. He is still kind of like a street level criminal. Not a terrible person, but still a criminal.
He does what he needs to do.
Yeah, exactly. He's a burglar. He steals. And he's obviously at odds with his brother, and his brother is like, Miles, you cannot see your uncle. Like, he's a bad influence. He needs to get his life together. I don't want you to interact with him at all. So Miles and Prowler get into this huge blowout when Miles realizes that Prowler has kind of manipulated him to take down, I think it's Scorpion. And Miles is like, I'm not going to help you anymore. And then his uncle is like, well, I will tell your parents and everyone who you are if you don't help me.
That's fucked up.
Yeah. So they start fighting, and then Prowler's gauntlet blows up and kills him, but not before he's like, you're just like me. Don't pretend you're not.
Yeah.
And then he dies.
That's
And
man.
Miles is scarred.
That's fucked up.
Yeah,
And also like interesting because the most sympathetic version of this character thus far is also kind of the darkest.
Yeah.
Of all the things that you've described.
Yeah.
That's probably the most messed up thing he's
Well, they
done.
do in the comic. They paint it in the same way they do in the movie, where he very much looks up to his uncle and he likes his uncle because
Yeah.
he's the fun uncle, and like he can't always be like that with his parents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
But in the movie, like he, as soon as he finds out it's Miles, not only does he like becomes good almost.
Yeah.
And
No,
then
that's why I was just like, oh my God, this is so fucked up.
Yeah.
Because again, his last words as he's dying is just like, you're just like me. You're going to end up just like me.
yeah.
Yeah.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Again, scars Miles for a
I
very
read that
long time.
recently too, and I was just like,
In Earth 616, though,
That's real Earth. No,
That's like the main Marvel
That's the main
Earth.
Marvel universe.
yeah. He happy retired from being a criminal. So, the movie kind of mixed a little bit. I mean, obviously he still dies, but in Earth, like Marvel's Earth. Yeah, sorry, just Earth 616, all the different universes. Have to keep them straight.
Yeah.
He does fake his death. So I'm just kind of like, maybe in the movie, he's not really dead.
What a mastermind plot to fake his death, to have Kingpin
yeah.
shoot him. That's
And then he's like, I'm alive and happy and a reformed
Yeah,
criminal,
yeah,
yay! I much prefer that version than him mentally scarring his nephew who looked up to him.
And his brother.
Yeah, but Aaron Davis tends to be, it looks like that's the one that was introduced like a little bit in Homecoming, and he was in Into the Spider-Verse, so I think that's maybe where the MCU is going to be going with
Probably,
Prowler.
It'd be really cool if he's in it. If he ends up being like more in it, like an actual integral part to it.
I need to look at the way that they've integrated Miles into the regular universe. Like, is his whole life in it now? Did they?
I think it was just a mention of, I I'd have to look this up.
Yeah,
I do. Too.
But
That happens all the time, though. It's the same thing with like with DC when they like integrated all those characters.
yeah.
You know, it's like, well, is everyone they've ever met in their life here, or did they just move over to this other dimension? Like
are you talking about
transferring
in the
schools?
comics?
Yeah. So Miles is in the 616.
Yeah, it's
universe.
all everything came.
They're
with
just
them.
kind of combined now.
But not the characters that are the ones that are opposed to the 616 stuff. So, like, he met Scorpion, but we have a Scorpion already. So, you see what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, I'm just talking about Miles himself
Yes.
and his family, and like they're
His
all
stories.
yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Been copy pasted
Interesting.
over to main continuity.
Yeah.
But yeah, nope, that's Prowler. I love him. He's actually probably one of my favorites. So
I like him so much. I have to do more with him.
I'm into
in
it.
Comics or whatever. If he's not dead. Okay, so I picked Morbius, the living vampire.
vampire.
So he's kind of like Kayla as far as not Kayla's pick. Sorry, not. Well, you did want to be a vampire.
I do.
So.
I was going to mention that. I mean, like, that's goals.
Kayla hates his
The
son.
living vampire. I want to be that.
So no, I mean, as far as he kind of tiptoes the gray, he's more goodish than bad. So his first appearance was in The Amazing Spider-Man number 108 in October 1971. So he's relatively newer as far as when most of these villains came out. He has chalk white skin, red eyes, fangs, retractable claws, which is creepy. And that describing a vampire. I
Yes.
mean, that's what a typical vampire you would think would be. But Morbius is not a true vampire. The source of his transformation is scientific, not mystical.
Correct.
So he's not
So
affected.
you're saying there's a chance.
As I'll explain, you can recreate these things and then we'll see if you can, we'll see what happens with you. So one of his funniest powers. So I mentioned kind of everything he has. He's bloodthirsty. He has to drink blood. Or else he'll start deteriorating and becoming weak, just like a vampire. But he has psionic gliding, and I thought the description for this power was so funny that I had to just mention this once. So, through mental concentration, Morbius is able to glide through the air over short distances. However, Morbius can only glide at speeds at 35 miles an hour, no more, no less.
What? I want to meet the writer that decided the exact miles per hour that he could glide.
And also short distances. So, like, you really need to make sure you won't splat on a wall or something, like, going that
You know what's
fast.
hilarious, though? It means there's no, like, a gradual build-up. He's just like, whoosh!
Yeah. That's
so
a good
funny.
point. No, it's like
And he can't slow down. He just stop.
No, it's like a Zeno paradox where he physically could never get to 35 miles per hour because that would require him to pass 16 miles an hour, which he could never do.
So he can't glide.
Do you see why I was confused
Yes.
when I read that? Because I was like, oh, psionic gliding, cool. And I
That's
was like,
hilarious.
wait.
And I'm totally using this
It
for
is-
one of my favorite powers.
It is.
The guest appearance we have.
It is so specific. It's like, where are you going, Morbius? I'm doing very specific flying.
Yeah, he's a vampire based in science.
Yes.
So this makes perfect sense.
Do you know why
Sure.
do you guys know why he's a vampire based in science? Think about it.
Why?
The
Is this a
comics code. The comics code stated that you couldn't have horror elements like vampires and werewolves. So they were like, well, he's not a real vampire. He's a living vampire. So he's not undead. And in the animated series, they did that thing where just because it's like a what do you call it, like a kid show or whatever. And this is hilarious to me, where it's like, well, he's a vampire, but we don't want to show that he has fangs and he sucks blood. So instead of blood, he sucks plasma, neat plasma. And they put these weird hole things on his hands,
Yeah.
making
it's
it
terrifying.
more horrifying than it ever would have been.
That's how he drinks. is
Yeah.
From these
Ew.
hand
Yeah.
mounts.
Ew.
It
I
was
don't
like
like it.
Cronenberg level terrifying.
It was worse.
It was way worse.
Worse. Way worse. So, to give some backstory on who Morbius is, he's a Nobel Prize winning biochemist, Dr. Michael Morbius. So he just kept his last name, and that's his name.
Morbius is a pretty cool name.
It is.
It's Michael Mysterioso Morbius.
But he discovered he was dying from a rare disorder dissolving his blood cells. So his blood cells were essentially dying.
Yeah.
His body was killing himself. So he started working on a cure with the aid of his partner, Emil Nikos. So Morbius was attempting to distill fluids from bats to stop the disease from killing himself. I don't know why he picked bats.
Yeah.
I don't think that science is completely accurate.
Completely. Something's off here.
Because comics, it works. So while experimenting with this stuff, he was on a boat also for some reason. And his partner gave him a shock. So he got the serum. His partner shocked him with electricity. And then thus born was a vampire.
If you get weird chemicals and electricity and a person, you're gonna make a supervillain or hero.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, so he immediately was driven by hunger for blood. So right off the bat, he turned into a vampire, and also he needed blood. He just knew that for a fact.
He was just like, you guys want blood?
So what he
I
does...
can use some blood.
Yeah. So what he does is he kills his partner that's helping him with it. He just... Oh, sorry, he doesn't kill him. My bad. He almost does.
Oh, that's nice.
This is so cool. I'm so into this.
So just before he was about to kill him, I guess his human side, less vampire side, kicked in, and he threw himself overboard on the yacht. So I guess that's why they were on a yacht, because he was eventually going to need to escape. So he ended up on the shore of the United States, and he got onto a boat and slew that crew.
Can you kill people in international waters?
I think it's fine.
It's legal, right?
I think he's a vampire, right?
Yeah.
I don't think that exempts him from murder.
That's a good question.
But
We should find out.
I was totally thinking, vampires don't normally, at least in classic myth, can't cross moving water. So
That's true.
He's impervious to that, or he was in pain that whole time.
One of the cool things about him is that he's not affected by the traditional vampire weaknesses.
The more mystical
a
ones.
stake
Yeah,
to
exactly.
the heart will still kill him because he's a living person.
Yes.
Well, he has a healing factor.
So a stake in the heart, does that kill him?
Oh, he's like
What?
he's like a blade in a sense.
Yeah.
But
More vampire.
the sun still hurts him, right? He's like, is that right? I think
No, he's
like,
fine with sun.
Wow.
So it's like, but the tagline,
It's kind of irritating to him, but yeah.
He won't burst into flames. But it's like that tagline of like he's got all of our strengths, but none of our weaknesses.
Oh no.
Or whatever, yeah. And he looks cool as shit.
He does look really cool. I mean, he looks terrifying.
Yes.
I don't think more so now. More so now they kind of make him look...
A little bit more conventional.
Yeah.
Just slick back hair.
Like,
It's like
Virgin
Euro
on
trash.
Twilight type stuff.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, give me that creature back. Like, I'd rather have him have the hand suckers than
Yeah,
look what he looks like
Ew.
now.
But by the way, can I just say, and I want to get your take on this, I'm totally here for this.
Mm-hmm.
So it was born out of this idea of why is he not a regular vampire? Why is he just living? But I think it's so cool, in the Spider-Man kind of mythology,
Mm-hmm.
genetic or radioactive exposure. So they do a vampire bat, and then he becomes a vampire bat person.
Mm-hmm.
That's so cool.
Mm-hmm.
That's very original. I like it.
So when he first meets Spider-Man, it's when Spider-Man had the 6 arms.
Yeah.
So that terrifying Spider-Man. I thought that was
Oh.
I could not.
Yeah. It's a lot.
It freaked me out.
It's a lot.
No.
Because he's still Peter Parker and he just has too many arms.
Yeah.
So he's on a beach. He gets into a beach house and he tries to kill himself. And he can't. That's when he finds out that he has this healing factor. Because he's so depressed, he was a normal person dying. He tried to cure himself. Then he's just killing people to stay alive. And he's like, I don't like to do this, but I have to do this.
Really
I
sad.
smell sitcom, guys.
So he encountered Spider-Man. This is when Spider-Man was trying to reverse the effects of him having the 6 arms. Because why would you want to have 6 arms? You can't really be Peter Parker and Spider-Man. They'd clearly be able to tell that you're Spider-Man.
He has to do that thing where the bottom arms hug themselves. He's like, no, I'm just fat now. I'm just real fat all the time.
I don't like it. But so he tries to... So Spider-Man's working with Dr. Connors, which is Lizard. So they're the ones that are trying to reverse this on Spider-Man. Then later on, that's how Lizard becomes Lizard. Morbius finds out about this and attacks him to get the stuff to reverse it because he thinks that it will help him. It does work for a little bit because it's kind of the same thing as Prowler and Spider-Man. They kind of ended up having this heart-to-heart type thing. And then he's like, okay, here you go. It took away the effects of him being a vampire, but then came back. So...
Aw.
Yeah.
He thought
Sad.
he was free. He
Sad-
was taunted
sad
with
times
normal
for
life.
him. But so this is also where he finds out that he can turn other people into living vampires.
Oh no.
That's so cool.
Because he bit Dr. Connors. And the fucked up thing about it is that the cure worked on Connors and not Morbius.
What?
Yeah.
Does it just not work on patient 0?
Well, I'm assuming so. So, I mean, I don't think that Connors would have that much potency in his blood type thing. So,
I just really like this too because it's like speaking of Patient Zero, it's like what they've done with the zombie stuff, like more recently, like in the last 30 years or so, but especially since like 28 Days, which is like, no, this is straight up a virus, and they try to make it as realistic as possible, while still preserving the scary shit about zombies. You know, they're like mindless, like flesh eaters.
So does he live forever?
Yeah, he doesn't age or anything.
Well,
as long as he drinks blood.
Morbius, if you're listening to this.
Yeah. Well, he did that thing in the 90s that they all do, which is like a pact to only feast on the blood of the bad guys.
Yeah, and he's like, if their blood be guilty, then so it will be mine, or something like that. I'm like, okay, I mean, I can kind of, like, it's fine. Like,
you still kill people, but you're more of an anti-villain.
Yeah. But you know, like, the thirstier he gets, the more, like...
That's how his stories go. I mean,
so the line between, like, who he deems as bad is kind of blurred.
That, or, like, depending on, like, if he goes into a craze, which has happened, and he just loses his shit, it's just on a rampage, and Spider-Man's like... You Morbius,
damn you! Stop you now!
Or he's just hanging out. It's like, oh, I'm so thirsty. It's like, oh, that guy's driving a PT Cruiser. Evil, huh, guys? Right? Evil.
Yeah,
let's get him.
He's been in a couple different. So if you've read DC, you know Shade. So that group of like kind of monsters led by Frankenstein. So Morbius has been in groups like that, where like he fits in with that aesthetic. He fits in with kind of the creatures of the night type thing.
Yeah.
But he tiptoes the line of being kind of an anti-hero, more of a kind of helper of Spider-Man, and then a villain when he loses his shit. So he's really interesting.
He was in like a team in the 90s called the Midnight Suns, I think. But I can't remember who was in it. It was like him and Blade and Ghost Rider, I think.
Yeah.
But they might have had some Doctor Strange action in there too.
Well,
as you
it
do.
would make sense.
Yeah.
And I also think it's interesting. So there's going to be a Morbius movie coming out. And Jared Leto is going to be Morbius, which, I mean, he looks like a vampire already. So
I'm kind of over Jared.
He's a weird idiot, so it's cool.
I wish they would stop casting him and things.
No, they just the way he works, they just tell him he is the character. And he's so dumb and weird. He's like, I'm that, like with Joker. He's like, I'm Joker now. So, So.
I think, well, I mean, to be fair, I think with the Joker thing, he was trying to do what Heath Ledger did, the whole like method acting,
thing, yeah.
Which is fine, but it's like, you went way too far. Like, I just think that's who you are, and you had an excuse to do that.
I just, every time now, it's like, Jared Leto's in this movie. I'm like, well, that decreases my chance of watching it by like 40%.
I think this one might be a good fit for him. Hopefully. I mean, we'll see. I didn't mind his Joker.
Yeah, I'm with you. That movie to me isn't hurt by the Joker in it. It's hurt by all the other stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's Morbius.
Yeah. And the character that I did...
Which is safe for last because it's the worst.
It's the best character. You guys, here's the thing. Every fan of Kraven the Hunter... I did Kraven the Hunter.
Oh.
Every fan of this character knows how wrong you guys are, and you will learn. You will learn.
I don't hate him.
He's fantastic.
He's not as cool as Prowler, is all we're saying.
He's so much cooler than
Morbius.
Prowler. So I would say Kraven, like we sort of mentioned, is similar to Mysterio, which is he's, up until recently for Mysterio, he's the character that's had the most effect on Spider-Man's life that has gotten no mainstream coverage yet. No adaptation into a movie or something like that.
Has he not?
He hasn't. He hasn't been in a movie. He's been in the animated series, just like Mysterio and stuff like that.
I'm like, I could have swore I saw him in some type of movement, not comic.
He hasn't been put in a movie yet.
Yeah,
so
okay.
Hopefully, but if you don't know, is Kraven the Hunter? His real name is Sergei Nikolaevich Kravenov. So obviously Chinese. And no, he's a Russian character.
Oh, you don't say.
Yeah, believe it or not,
Russian name.
And the idea behind Kraven the Hunter is that he is this world-class game hunter. But he's gotten so good and so accomplished in hunting big game like lions and tigers and all that, and bears. Oh my! So sorry, but anyway, so that he's bored and has to like take it up a notch. And along the way, in his travels in Africa, Kraven discovers the special herbs and spices. So he gets like a KFC kind of thing. Well, I'm glad you mentioned that because he's going to get these herbs that give him like enhance his physical powers to the very beast that he would fight. And to give you a sense, if you don't have, Kraven ends up being kind of like Captain America or more like that level. So not as physically powerful.
Oh,
as
you mean
Spider-Man.
strength?
Yes, yeah.
I was like,
yeah.
how is he like
Yeah.
Captain America?
Yeah, exactly.
Stand-up guy.
on paper, he should kind of be more powerful because the idea is Captain America is supposed to be like the peak of human potential, whereas Kraven's in that like 2-ton range. He's not. Anyway, but I'm glad you mentioned the heart-shaped Earth thing. That's, if you don't know, that's how Black Panther gets at least part of his powers, which is funny because in some sense this is a bit of like cultural chauvinism because the idea is that these characters were written in the 60s. Kraven, by the way, written by what's that guy's name? Stan Lee. Okay. yeah.
Classic.
Yeah. These characters are, based in like our perceptions of things in the 60s. And we had a tendency to look at different continents' Aboriginal religions as spooky and magical and things like that. That's so it's like these African characters, like, oh, they use their magic voodoo powers and stuff like that. It would be like if, I don't know, like, Christianity, we weren't Christians, but Christianity was really popular over there. There would be all these characters running around who, like, they would eat their magical Jesus tablets and then they would get superpowers.
Yeah. So kind of like exploitive of
it's
the cultures.
pretty, yeah, exactly. But that being said, he has these like sort of powers, and he has gotten like really, really bored. So his at the time friend Dmitri Gravenov, turns out it's his half brother, the Chameleon. Anyway, it's like, well, if you really want to be a great hunter, there's this guy over here called Spider-Man, and if you can beat him,
he's just mad that Spider-Man's beat him up.
Well, he definitely is trying to sort of like manipulate his half brother Kraven to come and beat Spider-Man. And what's really funny about this is that we talked about earlier in the episode, one of the reasons Mysterio decides he's gonna try to get famous, beat Spider-Man, is because he sees Spider-Man as like this easy mark.
Yeah,
he's like, I can beat this guy, whereas Kraven is like the greatest hunted all of hunted them.
Yeah, out of all of them, Spider-Man. Not Black Panther.
Exactly. Well, to be fair, at this point, Black Panther's not public. Nobody knows about Black Panther.
I guess it makes
he's
sense.
like sneaking around with the Avengers. Anyway, so he comes to the United States to kill Spider-Man, and he fails for about 20 years. That's kind of like, and I want just to give you a sense, if you don't understand what he's called, I think Kraven the Hunter is like Spider-Man's Bane. Because he's
always there, lurking in the shadows.
And he has physical prowess, but really it's his sort of tactical mind that's really scary. And he lays all these sort of traps, because that's how he approaches fighting Spider-Man. At some level, he will he's physically powerful enough to actually be able to trade blows, and he's generally a better fighter. But usually it's about like trapping him or
being a hunter.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Like, you thought I was over here. There's a giant net,
I think
or whatever.
It's something creepy about a villain whose goal is to kill the hero.
Yeah.
As opposed to like, that hero is annoying. He keeps getting in the way of my other plans. I mean, the fact that his sole goal is to murder Spider-Man.
Yeah, exactly.
It's pretty terrifying.
It's not like he's mad at Spider-Man because Spider-Man's an obstacle.
With something else.
Yes, he is the goal.
He's the trophy.
Yes, and clearly Kraven borrows from some cool but well-worn literary tropes.
Yes.
He is kind of like Ahab versus Spider-Man being his white whale versus, I can't remember the name of the character, but the guy on the island from The Most Dangerous Game.
Yeah.
Like, the most dangerous game is Spider-Man.
I mean, that's who I always think that Kraven is, or like, he's from that book.
So he's this hunter character who has the fashion sense of a drag queen, and it's very, if you haven't seen him, it's like they're clearly trying to go for a like, oh, these are the trophies that he's killed,
or it's like Crocodile Dundee. It's like, we get what you do for a profession.
He ends up having, but it's comics, so they're like, we have to translate immediately what he's about, but he ends up having like cheetah print pants and like big. And then and
it's a way too deep cut.
Yeah,
like, that thing goes to his belly button.
It's like a vest. Yeah, and there's reasons,
barely even a shirt.
Well, there's reasons that people think he's silly too. Unfortunately, they've moved past a lot of that stuff. But I get it, because like, so one of his early in like the 60s, 70s, one of his main weapons was he has this lion vest, and he would wire it very similar to Mysterio. I think Stanley just thought it would be cool to have like a coat that attacked people. But he would wire it in a way that like the eyes of the lion's head, which is like, if you look at his chest, that's the idea, is he is like this mane and a lion's head, and that it would shoot out like from the eyes, so like gas or sonic stuff or lasers, but it ends up just looking like his nipples attack you. It's not like that. which is scary.
It's like that character from Rocko's Modern Life, the nipples of the future.
Yes.
But more contemporarily, Craven uses, things like hunting, Bowie
equipment.
knives, spears, sometimes guns, though in the same Bane way, he can kind of be like back and forth about whether it's honorable to hunt with gun or whatever.
Yeah, but that's better than like
nipple gun
shooting.
You're right. You're right. Or worse, depending on who you talk to, I guess. But since he's not like some weird fetishist, it does make sense. Anyway, so he ends up sort of being this kind of like B-level villain for a while. He does make it on the Sinister Six early on. I think that point.
You keep having a hard time saying that.
Sinister Six.
Yes.
I'm just rushing. But I want to highlight one story. Usually when I do my deep dives, I don't like talk about specific stuff. But he has this one story called Craven's Last Hunt that basically is Craven, and it also rocketed him into being taken seriously. Mm-hmm. So the story I just give it a brief overview. The idea is that he realizes he's a failure, and so he decides the only way I can get my honor back is to not only best my enemy, which is Spider-Man, but show that I can be a better Spider-Man than he can be. So God. Spider-Man is repeatedly trying to apprehend this sort of bestial serial killer character named Vermin, kind of rat character that lives in the sewers and like takes people down and murders them. He's originally actually a pretty scary character. And
Peter Pettigrew.
Yeah, exactly. So Spider-Man barely beats him with the help of Captain America.
Yay!
Yeah. And the thing
Good old Cap.
Exactly. And the thing about Spider-Man is he just wants to save people. He doesn't really care about the ego or the honor or anything like that. But Craven beats Spider-Man in combat through some trickery or whatever, buries him alive, bests Vermin to show he's a better Spider-Man than Spider-Man will ever be. And then, thought to be dead, Peter Parker explodes out of the grave, and it's this fantastic image. It's a classic image of him like coming out of the grave and everything like that. Basically trying to get back to Craven to stop Craven. Craven doesn't care because he's already been. He's already shown
Better
he can
Spider-Man.
do exactly. Spider-Man will later go and actually defeat Vermin. I think more to show to the audience, not that Spider-Man cares, but so the audience is like, yeah, Spider-Man's still good. But
also, what a character to like prove like Spider-Man's worth Vermin.
Well, because he was, now we don't care, but he at the time he was the big bad new character. Right. But so Craven, knowing that he's proven to be the better Spider-Man, shoots himself in the head. It ends with Craven's death because it's called The Last Hunt.
That's so sad.
But this was, at the time, this is one of the, and still, I think, one of the best Spider-Man stories ever. And
it's really long, too.
Exactly. Well, and you end up with this problem of, okay, this great villain's dead. What do we do?
Oh, this actually sold issues, guys, and we just made him kill himself.
So Craven's had a bunch of kids. That's been very popular.
Trope.
Alyosha, Vladimir, Anna, all dead. I think actually Anna's still alive, maybe, but they and then recently Craven was resurrected and killed again, but his clone is kind of the clone. I gotta say, looks so badass because rather than have the cheeky like lion sort of thing, he has this awesome lion mane tattoo that goes from the neck down. It looks really cool, and Ryan Otley's art on this so good. But anyway, so that's basically Craven the Hunter.
Good job.
Yes.
Oh my God.
I love that we got to do it so much because I love Craven so much. Craven the Hunter.
All right. Special thanks this week for our new Patreon subscriber.
Yay!
Mr. Aaron Campbell.
Ooh.
Did you boo?
Oh, ooh. Oh. No B.
I was like, how dare you?
If anything, I put the B on the end, so I was like, ooh.
Aaron's the one that always agrees with you. So
no, Aaron's the best. If anything, I'm a fan of him.
It's your one and only fan.
Yeah, nice.
Just kidding. Okay, so as we do, superhero name or power or both.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I got it. Well, here's the thing. He likes me a lot, so he has good...
Oh my God.
So he has good judgment.
Oh my God.
So I think that Aaron's power is that he always knows the right course of action at any moment. But because he's got to be a superhero, he goes with the judge sort of thing, like that aesthetic.
Does he have like a white powdered wig?
Yes.
And like a
black and the black thing and a gavel of justice. But
so
here's
he
the
puts a hammer.
Yes, big fan. And when he hits somebody with it, because it's mystically imbued with the power of judgment, it only hurts people that are evil.
Oh.
What if he wants to be a bad guy?
Well, that he's fucked.
That would be awful if
So-
you wanted to be a bad guy, but your
Yeah.
power could only be used for good.
Well, that's why it's really cool, because he can hit people with it, and it's still just like a big like mallet, and it hurts them no matter what. But if you're bad in some way, depending on how the hammers are always deciding what's worthy. I don't know why, but then they explode, or it has more power. It's like more powerful against really bad people.
Ah.
Yeah.
Nice. That's a good power.
I like it. What's his name gonna be? I got it.
Oh, God.
Gavel.
The Adjudicator.
Oh, okay.
Whoa. That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, he's your biggest fan, and you just gave him everything.
Yeah.
I hope you're happy with that, Aaron. So, as always, you can subscribe to our Patreon as well. You can find it on any of our social media or patreon.com. And we have exclusive stuff on there, episodes. You can pick a topic. We shout you out, obviously, on the podcast and on social media. So look for that there. Comic book recommendation time.
Yay!
Time to recommend comics.
Yes. So I will kick it off with Morbius the Living Vampire. Came out in 2013. It was by Joseph. I'm going to murder this last name because I don't know how to say it. It's Kidding, maybe?
Sure.
But just look for Morbius the Living Vampire 2013. You'll find it. It's a really good starting point again for when they were kind of relaunching all the Marvel stuff. The artwork is fantastic, and he looks terrifying on the cover. No hand suckers, so you're spared from that.
Yeah, thank God. Okay, well, my recommendation, it's going to be Prowler #1, but the one that came out in 2016.
I was like,
So,
good luck finding the
the
first
most
one.
recent Prowler #1. It's still Hobie Brown, so the classic one that's been around for a long time. If you wanted Aaron Davis, just watch Into the Spider-Verse.
It's true.
But it was written by Sean Ryan, artist Jamal Campbell. It's a tie-in to Clone Conspiracy, but it also kind of functions by itself. It's kind of just it's a journey about a man trying to find his place in the world.
Aww.
So if you want to get into Mr. Brown's head,
Great.
pick up Prowler #1.
I like it. I'm going to recommend, this isn't that dramatic, I think, the current crossover that just ended, Hunted. So it starts in Spider-Man #16 of the current series by
The Amazing Spider-Man.
Yes,
right?
Amazing Spider-Man. Thank
Gotta
you.
make sure you put that
That's a really good
spectacular or amazing or
You're
ultimate.
right. those superlatives or whatever, not, or adjectives, very important. It's written by Nick Spencer, and it's had a series of artists because they've been doing this thing weekly. So he's had a lot of people, but a lot of them are really talented. Ryan Otley, like I mentioned. Humberto Ramos, who's been doing stuff for Marvel in a really cool way for a long time.
I like Ryan Otley's work.
And I mentioned Craven's Last Hunt, which you're already going to know about if you're looking for stories from him. Everybody mentions this. This crossover got overshadowed by The War of the Realms, which I also loved. But I actually thought this was really competent, very Craven-centric, and it'll give you an idea of what he is now and what his legacy's become. Check it out.
Also kicked off the Black Cat
Yes, it did.
solo series.
Yeah, really good stuff.
Yeah. Well,
Thanks, guys.
I hate you. Just kidding. I love you.
It makes it sound like you're saying, I hate you guys. Thanks, guys.
No,
hate
I
you.
love them.
Yeah.
Okay, bye, guys.
Thanks for listening. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter at The Phantom Zone Pod for more podcast updates.